listening to the Dr. Nina Show with Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi there. Welcome to the Dr. Nina Show, Outsmart Emotional Eating. I'm your host, Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin. I'm a psychoanalyst specializing in eating disorders, and I know firsthand what it is like to struggle. I found the cure to binge eating, and now I help people all over the world find food freedom. Yes, it is possible. And on this show, I am here for you too. Imagine waking up and thinking about your day, not your diet. That is the goal. So today I'm going to answer your questions. If you are watching on the Instagram live, feel free to drop a comment or a question if you have one. Later on, I may open the phone lines to callers, but let's just dive in and get to these questions. These are questions from listeners and also readers of my book, The Binge Cure. And I'm sure that one of these questions, if not all of them, is going to really resonate with you. Okay, so the first one is from Elle. She says, how do you process anger? I'm following your very technique, which I will explain if you don't know it. When it comes to ice cream, says Elle, I understand that I need comfort and I'm able to reassure myself with words. But when it comes to crunchy foods, it's like I'm having a block. She says she can identify that she's angry, but she doesn't know what to do with that feeling. So she's still binging on chips. She says, what should I do? Well, first of all, Elle, I'm really glad that you're being curious, not critical about why you're turning to those chips instead of focusing on what you're eating. Because when it comes to binge eating, stress eating, any kind of emotional eating, the problem is not food. Food is actually the solution to the problem. So recognizing what the problem is super necessary, and you have to do that first. You have to identify it, but identifying it is not enough. So she talks about my very technique, which I'm going to get to in a second. So if you identify that you are feeling angry, because using the food mood formula, for those of you who are familiar with it, anything with a crunch indicates some form of anger. Frustration, irritation, annoyance, anger, rage, some form of anger. But identifying it is just the first step. Then you have to express it. So you have to say, oh, I'm frustrated because of this. I'm angry because of this. I'm really annoyed because of that. And when I say that, you really have to you have to finish the sentence. So in my book on page 45, I give 45 through 47, I give a bunch of prompts to get you started. So, I'm aggravated because I had to, I'm trying to make something up. I'm aggravated because I live in LA and it takes, 30 minutes to go 1 mile. And that is so aggravating. Like, oh, I'm so aggravated, right? Not only just say what the feeling is, but why you are feeling that. What is it that you are actually angry about, if it's anger? And in her question, yes, it is. So first you identify what is eating at you, what are you feeling, what's going on with you, and if you don't know, use the food mood formula, which I will explain. And then next step is to express it, to say what is upsetting you and say the situation that is causing this upset. And then, right, so first identify, then express, then respond. So respond is the very. Very is my acronym, because I love acronyms. My acronym that stands for validate, acknowledge, and reassure yourself. So that would sound like, yes, of course I'm angry. Of course I'm frustrated. It is really hard. I'm just using my example. It is really hard to be in a hurry and be blocked by traffic and feel helpless and frustrated and upset. And hey, you know what? That might even bring you to a sense of feeling blocked in other areas of your life. So not only is it literally frustrating, but it could symbolically mean something to you. Of course you feel that way. That's sort of acknowledging and validating, and then reassuring. hey, hey, it won't always be this way. You're eventually going to get to where you want to go. Just something reassuring in that moment about the situation and about yourself. And then the why, of course, stands for you. So maybe a better example is I'm really upset because my partner and I had a fight. So yeah, of course I'm upset. The fight was upsetting. It doesn't feel good when you're not in harmony and in alliance with someone that you love, and it feels yucky. It feels awful. Of course you're upset, and you didn't feel heard, and you didn't feel whatever. But and I also recommend to say it from an I place. But I have strategies to talk to this person about what's bothering. We're going to come up with something together. We've had fights in the past. We've always found a way through. Something encouraging, right? That's how you deal with anger. The other thing to do is make sure that when you talk to yourself, it's not in an angry way. Really talk to yourself in a kind way and use it in a kind tone. So, L, that's how you process anger. That's how you process any feeling. You identify it, you express it. If it's comfort, yes, you give yourself comfort words instead of comfort food, and then you respond to yourself. And often we think that by identifying our feeling that it should just go away, like, oh, I realize I'm this, and then the dominoes are all going to fall. No, it doesn't work that way. We realize, oh, it's this, nothing happens, and then it's what's in the fridge, what's in the pantry, DoorDash, because we're trying to cope. Binge eating is a way of coping with something. And if you don't know how to express your anger, as in Elle's example, you're going to express it in some other way. You're going to distract yourself, excuse me, in some way. And food is always a handy distraction. So that's why be really curious about why you're eating instead of focusing on what you're eating. So, Elle, I hope that helped. For those of you who are not familiar with the food mood formula, it's this. So often we turn to food so quickly, we don't even know that we're triggered. We don't even know that we're being activated in some way. And so what's important to do is, hi, Elle. Elle's with me, with us on Instagram. I'm so glad. And if you have any clarifying questions beyond what I said, please feel free to put them. So if you don't know why you're getting activated, it just feels like you're being triggered by food, hold on. There's usually something else going on. There's something else going on. But how do you know what that is if you're so quick to go to coping? If you're so quick to go to coping, then actually the foods you choose to eat when you binge or when you start eating for comfort are actually a clue as to what is going on inside you. So Elle said when it came to ice cream, she understood that she needed comfort. That's because smooth and creamy foods like ice cream are associated with a need for comfort. Crunchy foods, anything that makes you bite down hard, chips, as in her example, those are associated with some forms of anger. And then the key is to express that anger in words instead of turning it on yourself later for eating. And again, the prompts in my book really help you out with that. And then to respond to yourself using the very technique. And anything like bread, cake, pizza, pasta, things like that, foods that take up space within us, those are associated with filling a void, symbolically filling a void. And so if those are your go-to foods, then you want to look at where are the holes in your life? What's the emptiness within? What's missing? And find new ways to fill those voids in your life. Very important. And by the way, I know this is hard. It is a lot easier to focus on what you're eating than what's eating at you. It is easier to focus on, oh my God, I shouldn't eat cake, than it is to say, oh, maybe I'm lonely. I got to look at that. It is hard, but it is ultimately freeing, because you've got to be in this process. You've got to heal by recognizing what your inner wounds are, what's missing in your life, what's hard to express, so that you learn to do it once and for all. And when you do that, then you have liberation. Then you're not in that diet binge cycle over and over and over. This cure means cure. It means you're done. It means when you actually heal the yourself by recognizing why you're eating, binging, finding new ways of responding to yourself, finding new ways to express yourself, new ways to be with yourself, new ways to be with other people, then you feel good, you feel better. You don't need a coping strategy like binging, because you're coping on your own in different ways, in healthy ways. So that's why I believe in liberation and not in recovery. Recovery is, oh, I've got to wake up every day and be good. I've got to think about this and be good for the rest of my life. Oh, that sounds horrible. Who wants that? No, 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 no. It's all about the cure. Okay, so thanks, Elle, for your question. And by the way, if you're just joining me now on Instagram, I am here live every Wednesday on LA Talk Radio, the Dr. Nina Show, Outsmart Emotional Eating. If you have any questions and you're on Instagram, you can drop them in the comment box. And if you ever miss a show, it's also available on the LA Talk Radio site and on Apple Podcasts, Audible, and other podcast sites. Okay, next question. This is from Carly. She says, why can't I keep up with others or be like other people? Oh, that's a tough one. Comparison is the thief of joy. And yet we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, especially on social media. It's very easy to compare yourself to others. But remember, often we're comparing our real lives to other people's REEL lives. I remember being once I was at some friend's house, a friend's house for dinner, and they always post everything they do on Instagram and Facebook, and my friends were having a fight. Oh my gosh, I hope that they are not listening now. But this is what happened. I will not identify them by name. So they're having a fight and they're just really bickering. And all the other guests are like, oh my God, oh, uncomfortable. So they're having a fight. And all of a sudden, one of them is like, oh, wait. We got to post on Instagram. And so she like holds up the phone and they take a picture and they're smiling and they look like they're having an amazing time with their friends, us in the background, and they post it and it looks like, oh my gosh, these people are living the life, right? They're having a great time. They've got friends over. It looks amazing. And then as soon as it gets posted, they keep bickering. So you can never trust what you actually see on social media, because not everything is what it is supposed to be. Oh my God, that was terrible, but I couldn't help it. All right. So Carly asked this question in my Facebook community, Dr. Nina's Food for Thought community. If you're not in it, please join. Just do a search for Dr. Nina's Food for Thought community, and we'll let you in, and you can join a community of other people who are going through the same thing that you are going through, and who can give you support and that you can support too. It's all about that mutuality, and support system is so important, that other people understand what you're going through. So I asked her this so she posted this in the Facebook community page. So I asked her, why are you comparing? Why the comparison to others? Can you clarify, Carly, what you mean by keep up with others? And then I said, it's really important to embrace your uniqueness. You are the only Carly there is. Like, there's only one you. And what she wrote back, I'm going to share because I think it's really important. She said, I've been in competitive schools where teachers would compare me to the children from regular schools and say if I didn't perform, then I would give up my place in the school to those on the wait list and those ready to work hard. So she said, I guess I associate I'm associating working hard in relationships. Otherwise, I'll be asked to leave. So what was relational in her, which is very insightful, Carly. So she had the experience of being compared to other people and being told, hey, you better do well, otherwise you're out of here. And now she's taken that dynamic to so many areas of her life. And now no one's saying that to her, but she's doing it to herself. So often the relationships that we have in our past become the relationships that we have to ourselves. And if they are harsh and judgmental and critical and mean, guess what? We may turn to food to get away from our own mean voice. For example, if you have a judgmental parent or sibling or grandparent or aunt or uncle or someone who's in your life and has influence over you, or even teacher, has influence over you and tells you either overtly or covertly, you're not good enough. Nothing you do is enough, and is judgmental and critical, then you may grow up to be a person who says to yourself, I'm not good enough. Or, often we talk to ourselves in a mean second person voice and tell ourselves, you're not good enough. Nothing you do will ever be enough. So what was relational between you and somebody else is now intrapsychic, which means between parts of you. So a part of you is now judgmental to you. And you can't judge yourself and lift yourself up at the same time. So if you've learned to be judgmental to yourself because someone was judging you and giving you the message that you weren't good enough, now you're doing that to yourself. You can't smack yourself down and support yourself and lift yourself up. So what do? This is where binging or turning to food is a coping strategy. And often it's to get away from our own mean voice. So if you find yourself judging yourself, really important to look at, where did this come from? Who judged me originally? Whose voice is that? And there are two ways that we internalize a judgmental voice. One way is when we're kids and people are overtly judging us. Oh, you didn't do well enough. You could do better. Why didn't you do better? You're too much or not enough is basically the essential message. And then you internalize that and you tell yourself, oh, I'm too much and not enough. The second way is when you're not getting enough structure in your life. When kids don't get enough structure, they create a judgmental voice. They become super harsh to themselves. So they give themselves the judgmental voice to keep themselves in line because nobody else is giving them that structure, because structure feels safe. The right amount of structure feels safe. Too much structure feels like you're in emotional prison. But the right amount of structure feels safe. So kids who have no structure don't feel safe, and they can create a judgmental, harsh, critical voice that they then take into adulthood and feel mean, because the way we think about ourselves, the things we say to ourselves affects the way we feel. The way we feel affects what we do. So you're not good enough makes you feel terrible. You can't lift yourself up after just smacking yourself down. So you feel terrible. You don't have strategies yet to support yourself. And that's where food comes in for comfort and distraction. So super, super important to really look at, what is your relationship with yourself? And if you're going to compare yourself with anyone, compare yourself to yourself. I really like this idea of a metaphorical ladder of life. All right, so imagine a giant ladder. And often we only look up. We're always looking up, going, when I get there, the when then trap. Like when I get there, meaning when I stop binging, when I lose weight, when I this, then I'll be happy. Way up on that ladder. And you're always trying to get up on the ladder where you're going to feel good, which means you're never in your life, which means you're always feeling bad because feeling good is in the future. This is not helpful. it is good to look up and say, you know what, I do have goals in life. I want to be there. I want to get to that goal. But it's very important not to have that be the only thing you're doing. So, ladder of life, look down, right? If there's any comparison to do, look down, compare to your past self. Look down the ladder and remember where you were then. What were you struggling with? How were you coping? What was going on in your life? And then think about where you are now and see how far you have come in different ways. You have progressed, and it's really important to look down and say, wow, look at how far I've come. I feel really good about myself. I was, maybe it was even I was super harsh to myself before, and now I'm a little bit kinder. Or I was people pleasing more back then, and now I at least know I'm people pleasing, and I'm really working on changing that. Or whatever it is, look at or I didn't have I had a very unsatisfying job back then, and it doesn't have to be just your relationship with yourself. It could be I was not happy, and now I have a job that really is fulfilling and gratifying, and I'm really proud of myself. I got this raise, or I got whatever. So look back on your life, and if you're going to compare yourself to yourself. See how far you have come and balance that with where you are. Being where you are and balancing where you want to go, where you've come from right now is the rung that you are on, and learning to appreciate that rung. This is not a race with other people. This is your life. This is your pace. There is not some clock out there saying, you haven't done this fast enough. I hear a lot of, well, I should be here by now at this age. Really? Should you? According to what? I'm sorry, is that on the 10 Commandments that Moses brought down? I don't think so. You are where you are, and everything that you have been through in your life has brought you to this moment. Appreciate that instead of comparing yourself to some other life you think you were supposed to live. The important thing here is to appreciate yourself, honor yourself, recognize your strengths as you also seek to make changes in your life, in your relationship with yourself, and in your relationship with food. Okay. So thank you, Carly, for that answer. Okay, then I have that answer and that question because it was both were good. Okay, so this is from Nicole, and she says, how can I get out of the all or nothing thinking? And she said it was her birthday, and she'd order a cake, and then her mom baked her a cake, and then her sister brought her a cupcake, and she was going to make 2 different tiramisus, and she was overwhelmed with all these sweets for her birthday, and she didn't know when she should make her cakes, and she had so many sweet things, but she felt like she had to make the cakes because it was her birthday. So how can she get out of the all or nothing thinking? Okay, all or nothing thinking is diet mentality. It's good food, bad food, which represents good me, bad me. But in reading this, Nicole, I wonder if there's something about wasting food that it might be about all or nothing thinking, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I'm also wondering about wasting food, because that could be really hard for some people to throw, like, okay, you got ingredients for 2 tiramisus, and now the ingredients, she says they're going to expire. She's got to make it soon, but she's sick of cake. Well, what if you didn't make the cake and you threw out some of those ingredients and bought them later and made it at a future time when you weren't all caked out? Throwing out food can be really tricky for a lot of people. My dad cannot waste food. That's how he looks at it. He would get mad if you would throw anything out. He would get mad if you didn't finish everything on your plate. And I remember my mom telling me, well, he sees food as money. And so if you because it took money to buy this food. So if you throw the food out, then you're wasting money. So for him, it meant a waste of money. And that could be true of a lot of people, but we're also somehow socialized into the like clean your plate, or a whole generation of people were raised going, there are children starving in India, you must eat your whole dinner, right? Which of course teaches you not to eat intuitively, and not to know when you're full, and not to make decisions based on your satiety. Oh no, children in India are starving, so therefore you must eat something, which disconnects you from food and gives you a strange message, right? Like other people don't have enough, so you should have everything even though you don't want it. Okay. So Nicole, I would wonder if there was something about that being wasteful, throwing food out, that is in the mix here as well. All or nothing thinking is black and white thinking, good food, bad food, which translates into good me, bad me. So if you eat, tomatoes, you are good. And if you eat cake, you are bad. Even if you intellectually don't think that consciously, this is what's programmed into us by the $60 billion diet industry, which is, which is intent on keeping us all dieting. And the diet industry sells us this idea that if you just get to this weight by going on this diet plan, and by the way, what is a diet plan? Eat this, but not that. This is good, that's bad. Then you will have the life that you want. If you lose weight, you will be the person you want to be. Losing weight is the key to happiness, says the diet industry. And we're all programmed with it. If we watch TV, if we see commercials, if we see it permeates our lives. And it's really important to recognize that this is an illusion that they are selling us. And embedded in this illusion is the eat this, but not that. So Nicole, all or nothing thinking is diet thinking. And diet mentality is about deprivation. And the anticipation or experience of deprivation only makes you want something more. So even if you're using words like, I just want to be healthy, you might be in a diet mentality without even realizing it. So all or nothing thinking, Nicole, I mean, I can only go by your question. I think you're saying that you were really sick of cake and you didn't want to make those tiramisus, but you felt like you had to. So question the fact that you had to. Think about what it means to quote unquote waste food or throw it out, and question that idea of good food, bad food, because a lot of people say, no, I know, I'm just eating healthy. I'm not in a good food, bad food mentality, but they really are. And they really still, it's just that bad food has now become healthy food. And it's still I'm being good or I'm being bad. And if you're being bad and it's an all or nothing thinking, then you think, well, I ate that, I was bad, I might as well eat all the bad things, and now you're in a binge. So challenge the idea that you're good if you eat a certain food. Let's take the morality out of it, that you're good if you eat a certain food and you're bad if you eat another kind of food. And really listen to your body. Actually, the interesting thing is when we make all foods neutral and it's just about what do you want, that's when we can actually eat intuitively. Because often we'll say, I don't really feel like ice cream. I don't know. I'd rather have an orange. Because you can have ice cream anytime. If you know you could have ice cream anytime, you may or may not want it. So by taking away this diet mentality, we actually often are able to eat less of it without dieting. I mean, that's that's the beautiful thing about it. But first, before you get to that intuitive eating place, it's really important to look at the psychological motivations for why you're eating something. Are you turning to food for comfort? Are you trying to numb yourself? Are you distracting yourself? Are you lonely, which feels like emptiness? And are you filling a void symbolically? And by the way, when I say this, I'm not thinking that you're thinking, I feel so empty and lonely. I will now go and eat bulky foods that take up space within me to fill the internal void. No, it's out of awareness, but not out of operation. That's what it's hidden in your unconscious mind. But the more that you think about it, the less it will be hidden. So, that's why the food moon formula can really help you. Or are you angry and you're expressing it by eating crunchy foods? Are you eating so much that you are in pain? If so, are you converting emotional pain to physical pain? Be very, very, very curious about why you are eating instead of focusing on what you are eating. Because there are 3 reasons people binge. One is they are not eating enough during the day. And when they finally start eating, they're so ravenous and hungry that they can't stop and end up binging. The second is about deprivation. Oh, I'm going to go on a diet tomorrow. So tonight is my last day to have all the things that I'm not going to be able to eat until I get to my magical weight. And so the anticipation of deprivation leads to that last supper mentality. This is my last chance to eat all the bad foods, so I might as well eat all of them, which you do, and then out of a sense of future deprivation. Or you've been deprived for so long and finally you can't stand it anymore, and you have the thing that you haven't been having, which makes you want more of it. So those are the first two reasons why people binge. The third, and of course the most common, is binge eating disorder, which is a coping strategy. It's a way of coping with what's going on in your life. And we live in a society that says, hey, just be happy. Just be happy. Don't have feelings. Feelings are bad. Just think positively. Oh, which gets me to another question. So what do we do? So what do we do when we have feelings which are just reactions to situations? If we don't have strategies to express them and respond to ourselves, we are going to use food in some way to cope. All right. So this is from, I knew I had this question in here. Okay, this is from Sandy. She says, I try to think positive and use my mantras, but it doesn't help. What can I do to be less negative? And she goes on to say that, like, she feels negative, she feels hopeless, and then she just ends up eating to feel better. And this is a cycle. Sandy, I love this question because you brought up thinking positively. Here's the thing about emotions. We cannot ignore them. We cannot drop them. We cannot positive think them away. We cannot stuff them down, and we can't gratitude them away. What I hear a lot is this, what I call toxic positivity. And toxic positivity is really about, it's a way of dismissing your experience. So if you feel bad and you tell yourself, oh, but here are all the reasons that I should look on the bright side, and here are all the things that I should feel good about, what are you doing? You're dismissing and ignoring what you actually feel. And the most egregious example I have of this is a patient I had once who, she got in like a fender bender, but it was really annoying. I mean, we live in LA, you get in a fender bender, it's a whole hassle thing. I'm sure it's a hassle everywhere, but pulling off the freeway, waiting for a tow truck, dealing with insurance, getting to the body shop, renting a car, all these things. It's a hassle. What's always a hassle? It's a hassle. Fender bender or massive car accident. Luckily, no one was hurt. So what she said to me was, at first she said, oh, I'm so frustrated. I had to deal with the insurance, and I was dealing with all these things. It was so frustrating. And then she says, but you know what, I'm just lucky that everyone is okay. And in fact, I'm like, it could have been so much worse. And thank God, no one was hurt. And you know what, not everyone has and then she says this, not everyone has a car. I should just be lucky that I had a car to get in an accident with, because there are a lot of people who are waiting at the bus stop and they don't have the luxury of driving on the freeway and getting into a fender bender. So really, I should just be grateful I have a car instead of being upset that I have to now go through the hassle of getting it fixed. Really? You should be grateful you have a car. So what she did was she dismissed her frustration, her annoyance. It messed up her whole day. She was understandably frustrated and annoyed. And then what she said was, what I'm really frustrated with is that I ate a bagel for breakfast. And then she goes on and is talking about her poor breakfast food choices. So what she did was she displaced her frustration over getting in a fender bender and everything that went with that onto herself for eating a bagel, which, talk about, all or nothing thinking, bagels were bad in her mind. And so instead of processing the frustration of the situation, she took it out on herself and was frustrated with herself for what she ate. If she had just said, oh, this is so frustrating, using the very method, let's go back to that. Of course I'm frustrated. It's really annoying to, first of all, my whole day is shot, and now I've got to deal with the insurance and the body shop and all the things. It's really messing up my life right now. Of course I'm frustrated. How could I not? Right? Validate and acknowledge, and then reassuring herself, but I'm going to get through this. This is going to be over. I will soon have my car back, and this will be history. But I'm going to just appreciate that. Yes, no one was hurt, and that's good. And I'm going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. But yes, it is frustrating for now. If she had allowed herself to go through that process, she wouldn't have then gotten mad at herself for eating a bagel. All that frustration was not really about a bagel. It was about her car accident. So thinking positively is really just a way of being dismissive when it is toxic positivity. We are weaponizing positivity to dismiss and deny our real lived feelings. And I'm going to quickly tell the story of how I did everything wrong with my daughter. Some of you have heard this before, but bear with me. A lot of you have not heard it, but bear with me. It's important to hear multiple times. So my daughter, scraped her knee, and she was crying and crying and crying, and she's like, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. I did everything wrong. I was positive. I said, oh, it's not that bad. You're okay. Let's just get you a Band-Aid. You're good. You're fine. Girl, you're fine. It's just a little scrape. Oh, did everything wrong. So naturally, she keeps crying. But Mom, it hurts so bad. It hurts, it hurts. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm doing the thing that I tell everybody don't do. So I said, you're right. You know what? Now that I look at it, now that I take a closer look, that looks really painful. That must hurt a lot. She stops crying immediately, and she's like, yeah, Mom, it does. Can I have a Band-Aid now? Right? Now, why do I tell that story about a physical injury? Because there is a direct parallel with our emotional pain. If you have a breakup, or if you have a really terrible day at work, and someone tells you, hey, it could be worse, at least you have a job. Hey, it's not that bad. It could be worse. At least you weren't fired. Would you feel better? No, you would not. What someone has to say is, oh, that sucks, right? That's terrible. So, and then you could be positive later when you say, but you know what? I'm going to get through this. Thinking positively should not mean weaponizing positivity to deny your experience. It should mean being motivational and helpful and saying to yourself, I'm going to get through this. I've been through tough things before, and I am going to get through this as well. So Sandy, the reason it's not working is because I suspect that you're thinking positive, as you put it, is actually you are being, toxically positive to yourself, and you are dismissing your experience. And you can't do that. The only way to get rid of feelings is to feel them, to identify them and to feel them, and not dismiss them with positivity or anything remotely like that. So you are not being negative. It's the other thing that I hear a lot is, oh, I was being so negative. No, you were upset. You were angry. You were hurt. You were, frustrated. You were scared. You were anxious. That's not being negative. That's being a person having a feeling about a situation. And of course, if you feel bad and you can't, and then you feel bad about feeling bad. So poor Sandy, she feels bad. She tries to positive think it away, can't do it, tries a bunch of mantras, doesn't work because you can't, mantra away your pain. And then she tells herself she's being negative. Of course, she's heading to the kitchen to get away from her own mean voice, because that's pretty mean. If you had a friend, Sandy, and something, you're not saying, an example, but let's just say something painful happened, and would you say to your friend, hey, look on the bright side, just say this mantra? And if the friend is like, oh, that doesn't help, would you say, you're being negative, and storm out? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Sandy, I don't really know who you are, but I suspect you wouldn't do that. So really important to, again, use the very technique that I've explained earlier and validate and acknowledge your experience, and then reassure yourself. And that's where you can be positive, in that you're saying, hey, I've been through something tough in the past. I'm going to get through this. Or, hey, I'm resourceful, or I'm going to figure this out. That's being positive. Being positive is not telling yourself why it shouldn't affect you, or why it's not that bad, or why it could be worse, or look on the bright side, or any of those things. That's being dismissive. Okay. And this is a sort of a comment from Paula, not a question. Paula says, as you pointed out, the diet industry promises quick fixes with little successful results for many. When the call comes to eat, I found your recommendation to treat myself as a best friend, not the toxic positivity, to get in and getting in touch with what's eating at me, with learning about the latter versus getting it perfect, not to binge on the first try, has been helpful. She said a lot in there. And by the way, yeah, not learning about the ladder that I talked about earlier, the metaphorical ladder, in which instead of always looking up, you're looking down, and you're saying, look how far I've come. Look at my capacities. Look at my abilities. Look at my strengths. I feel good about myself. And to remember, there is no perfection. Notice my cup, perfectly imperfect. You are perfectly imperfect. There is no such thing as perfection, except in isosceles triangles. But let me just address something that Paula said, treating herself as a best friend. So I often talk about, like, turn your inner critic into a friend. Because if you are critical to yourself, guess what? You're going to feel bad. And if you feel bad because you've just criticized or judged yourself, you can't simultaneously slap yourself down and lift yourself up. It doesn't work that way. So generally what you do is go, I need a snack. I need some ice cream. I need to eat something. So turning your critic into a friend means, instead of criticizing yourself, judging yourself, saying something mean to yourself, which makes you feel bad, which leads to eating, to be a friend to yourself. How do you do that? First of all, think about what you would say to a friend in a similar situation. For example, if I'm using an actual example from someone who said, oh my God, I ate the whole pizza, ordered pizza, was only going to have a piece of it, one piece, because remember, that person created deprivation. I'm only going to have a piece of pizza. Versus I'm going to have pizza until I feel satisfied. I don't know. It'll be one piece, maybe it'll be two, maybe it'll be three. I don't know. But whatever, let me find out. Instead, it was, you can only have a piece of pizza, one piece of pizza, which turned into, of course, a binge. Ate the whole pizza over the course of the night, was absolutely in physical pain, right? Converted emotional pain to physical pain, and then was really harsh to themselves. Oh my God, I'm so disgusting. I hate myself, all of that. The dream decipher, yes, we should turn that critic into our biggest cheerleader. Absolutely. Love it. I said, what would you say to a friend who was going through a rough time and ended up eating a whole pizza and feeling terrible? Would you say to your friend, you're disgusting? Oh my God, you have no willpower. You're never going to get over this, or all the things this person was saying to themselves. And they said, no, I'd never say that. I'd never say that to anybody else. That would be horrible. That would be horrible. That would be harsh. That would be so mean. Then why say it to yourself? Why? Why are you saying it to yourself? Turn that inner critic into your biggest cheerleader and talk to yourself as you would to a friend. I said, what would you say to a friend? Oh, I'd say, hey, you know what? It's okay. Like, it's only pizza. Maybe something was going on with you. Have you thought about why you ate the pizza? Like, what's going on with you? And I said, oh, these are beautiful questions to ask. So ask yourself those questions. Treat yourself as you would a friend. And by the way, that also means talking to yourself in a nice voice. Often we talk to others as we would like to be talked to or treated. But we talk to ourselves as we were treated or as how we learned to treat ourselves. So in this person's example, they'd say to the friend, oh, well, let's understand what was going on. And, it's not a disaster. Like, let's figure it out. That's what they'd say to their friend. But to themselves, it was like, why did you do that? You're disgusting. Like, in a totally mean, harsh, nasty tone. Watch the tone that you talk to yourself in. Watch the way that you talk to yourself. It is extraordinary the difference it makes when you are your own best friend, cheerleading best friend to you. It makes all the difference. The other thing that I want to say is that if you're having trouble identifying your inner critic because it just sounds like you're motivating yourself or being realistic, these are things people tell me all the time. I'm not being harsh. I'm motivating myself. Really? You're motivating yourself with criticism? Would you motivate anybody else with this criticism? No. Your so-called motivation is actually mean. It's meanovation, and it's making you feel bad. And when you feel bad and you're being mean to yourself, you're going to go eat to get away from your own mean voice. Notice there's a theme here about how often we eat to cope or to get away from our own mean voice. And even if that mean voice is, I shouldn't eat that, or you shouldn't eat that, or that's good, or that's bad, or now you blew it, right? It's still mean. It's still harsh. So think about the way that you're talking to yourself, the words that you're using, and also the tone that you're using. Because a kind, loving tone can make all the difference. It's like a verbal hug, is how I like to put it. So when you're mean to yourself and you feel bad, you're going to go binge to feel better, to escape, to distract, all the things. When you're supportive of yourself and you're kind, you feel good. When you feel good, guess what? You don't need to distract yourself, comfort yourself, or anything else with food. Now, sometimes we feel bad not because of our own mean voice, but because things happen. But how do we respond to the things that happen? For example, my patient I told you about who got in the car accident, the fender bender, she did not respond to herself kindly. So something happened out of the blue, but how she dealt with it was unkind and harsh and dismissive. But sometimes just things happen and we are affected by them. And that is when we have to find new ways of coping with our feelings. And that means identifying what are you feeling, expressing your feelings. Oh, I'm out of time. Expressing our feelings and then responding to ourselves. That is the key. All right, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Dr. Nina Show on LA Talk Radio. I am here live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, also live streaming on Instagram and Facebook. And if you missed the show, you can always catch it later on LA Talk Radio's site or on podcasts. If you'd like a deeper dive into these topics, check out my book, The Binge Cure, 7 Steps to Outsmart Emotional Eating, available on Amazon in all formats. Stay curious, not critical. I will see you next week. Bye for now.
You're listening to the Dr. Nina Show with Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin, only on LA Talk Radio.